where iron bundles coming in here.
Yeah, and I think something that we may have just skipped and not highlighted enough, that's a Corviknight.
Yeah.
That is a Corviknight on the verge of going to day 2. Yeah, you can make the argument that's also a Primarina, but I think Corviknight, it feels like it could be passive, but Jamie's been piloting it to great success so far, it seems.
We'll have to see how that goes as these two trainers leading off in Game 1. Assault Vest Chen Pao for Jamie, backed by that gouging fire. The booster energy activating the photosynthesis, getting that speed boost that we've seen so prevalently. But Ogerpon is going to be able to redirect a lot of attacks away from this Registeel.
And I think we're in the scenario right now where we've got the option of the Gouging Fire opting to go for the Heat Crash if it wants to try to at least get neutral damage dealt onto Ogerpon, but Roman does have the option on using their Terra right now. And using it, sure, may put yourself on the back foot, but we got the potential Electric Terra from this Chien Pao, which it may just well go ahead and try to pounce in for very big damage.
It would do a lot of damage, especially if the Ogerpon did commit its Terra, as if Jamie commits his Terra and goes for that Terra Blast into the Ogerpon, it's going to do super effective damage. If it doesn't go into, or if Ogerpon on Roman's side doesn't go for the Terra, then an Icicle Crash is going to do similar sorts of damage, but it's the Howl starting off the turn there for Jamie.
Lovely, lovely Howl there, going to be boosting up the attack of both the Gouging Fire itself as well as its partner, Terra Blast, at +1 right now with the Electric Terra, of course, will deal just shy of half of the HP worth. So much damage right there, whilst Ivy Cudgel actually picking up a critical hit, and all of a sudden guaranteeing that 2-hit KO on the Gouging Fire, whilst we have Registeel doing what Registeel does, starting to set up with the Iron Defense, bringing it straight up to +2 of its defense stat stage, and getting a bit of lefties recovery. So in a prime spot right now to try to counteract any Howls that will have to try to catch up as quick as they can.
Definitely. Howl is only boosting up 1 stat point at a time, where Iron Defense is boosting up 2. So not only is Roman getting into a spot where the Registeel is not going to take too much damage, but also to the spot where he's going to be able to do lots of damage with the body press.
As we're going to have a double protect from Roman's side. All right, now just wanting to be sure, and I do really like this play because you can get that leftovers recovery a bit more, but it does leave you susceptible to allow Jamie to get that oh-so-free Howl, bringing it up to +2 for both of Pokemon. This is normally a situation you would not want to be facing. You've got a sharply increased attack on both of your opponent's Pokemon.
But I think this is okay for Roman, right? Because you can follow me the Ogerpon, follow me with Ogerpon away any attacks from Chien Pao and Gouging Fire. With 2 stages of increased attack, it's likely that the Chien Pao is going to be able to knock out this Ogerpon in 1. But Gouging Fire's Heat Crash is actually not that effective against Registeel, because Registeel's such a heavy Pokemon itself. And so with those 2 stages of increased defense, there's a lot of opportunity for Roman to now go on the offensive, and especially take away any weaknesses that it has with its Terra Fairy.
Indeed, as the Terastallization will be coming out right now, it does allow the situation where it doesn't want to be susceptible to any potential Fire-type moves. But no, Gouging Fire just going for what it's been doing, bringing it up to +3 for itself and Chien Pao. What a way to go about this. Sacred Sword, not actually picking up the KO. Body press going into the Chien Pao. 2-hit KO, but what a survival from
that Ogerpon is something else. I mean, wow, that's 3 stages of increased attack on the Chien Pao, and usually you would expect that to be able to KO pretty much anything, with the advent of Sword of Ruin also boosting that up. But with Jamie going for the Howl as well, he's not actually managed to knock out that Ogerpon in this turn. That means that Follow Me is still active, and now the Gouging Fire has to commit to a breaking swipe if the Chien Pao wants to attack this Registeel.
Or it could just go for the Heat Crash, just in case there's any sort of switches there and wants to capitalize off of same type attack bonus. But of course, the deed has been done. It's picked up the KO. Ogerpon has already helped out where it's needed to by surviving there. Ice Spinner, not enough to pick up the KO. Registeel, yes, with the body press, well able to do so. And we've got a bit of a trade-off right here. 1 Pokemon KO'd on either side. But I feel like this Gouging Fire is in a prime position to try to get any sort of other heat crashes off. But once again, it's that iron defense, which is such a big player in this matchup.
I think it would be in a good spot to be able to take a lot of this game going forward if it hadn't taken so much damage already. And now with the Delibird coming in, it's a prime spot for Roman to be able to capitalize on the speed boost activated by the booster energy, getting the Quark Drive, getting the speed boost onto the Iron Bundle. I haven't said that name in so long, Costa. And because
it's been a while we've seen it, to be fair.
Yeah, the Gouging Fire is not going to be able to take a freeze drive from the Iron Bundle there. The question is this Registeel, has this Registeel got enough special defense investment to be able to take a big attack from this Primarina? It's not carrying a life orb, instead the leftovers, so not going to be doing boosted damage, but it is hitting on that special side.
It is indeed. I'm not sure if Jamie's going to try to capitalize off of a passive play from Roman here and opt to go for a Calm Mind. Knowing Jamie, that's a really good potential, but that will be seen, of course, in a short moment. Heat Crash trying to focus down on that Iron Bundle, and there is indeed Jamie acknowledging the board state, saying, right, this is likely going to be a very safe protect here. There's no reason, primarily, that you may want to try to go for it other than leftovers recovery, as we know the Iron Bundle is the fastest thing on the field, and it does offer that offensive pressure against both the Primarina and Gouging Fire.
Right, but the Gouging Fire could have gone for the Burning Bulwark there, so I think Roman trying to make sure that he was able to target with a freeze dry safely into that slot. As it stands, the Burning Bulwark is going to be coming this turn instead, but the Primarina now with its boost might even be able to knock out this Primarina the Iron Bundle in one, as a freeze dry launches its way into that Primarina slot.
Oh, and the Registeel is actually faster than the Primarina. I may have misread things at the moment, but we do have no, I am indeed correct. The Registeel is faster. We've got the Moonblast, picks up the KO onto the Iron Bundle. One hit KO right there. Iron Bundle, I do really, really appreciate you being here, but unfortunately, you weren't able to be as well utilized in this scenario.
This is a big turn for Jamie, because not only has he knocked out the Iron Bundle, which is the only Pokemon on Roman's team that's able to naturally outspeed this Gouging Fire with its Photosynthesis boost, but also he's been able to get the Burning Bulwark onto the Registeel. That's going to half the damage from any future body presses. Now, you may argue that if the Registeel's on the team for on the field for the next 16 turns, it doesn't matter if it's burnt or not. It's going to be able to get those body presses. Eventually, it's going to be able to get some knockouts here, but with Primarina on the field resisting those hits, it's going to be tough for Roman.
That's a lot of damage. Does bring the Urshifu straight down to its Focus Sash, whilst we have close combat. Try to focus in on the Primarina there, actually. Locking itself in would be the thought, but no, it does have the Focus Sash. Maybe expecting a switch out there, perhaps, trying to guarantee and pick up a surprise KO, but unfortunately, right now, there's going to be very little that Roman's going to be able to do to bring this one back, even if you do have a Registeel, but the burn offsets that recovery, doesn't it?
It does. I think it's a great last hurrah there for Roman, understanding that the Primarina is actually gatekeeping the set. If you take the Heat Crash onto the Urshifu, you manage to get the close combat and the body press onto the Primarina. If that's enough to pick up the KO in that scenario, then you've always got the fallback of going for the Sucker Punch to knock out the Gouging Fire, where it's not able to switch out because you've knocked out two of Jamie's Pokemon. But Jamie, again, holding firm here. I think really holding his nerve very, very well by not protecting the Gouging Fire in that first opportunity that he had to do so, and instead kind of calling Roman out there, instead of doing it the second time round, getting the burn, knocking out the Iron Bundle, and really solidifying his board state.
It's one of those moments where if you can catch out your opponent with that one turn, you sort of throw them off balance a bit, where they all of a sudden, in the subsequent turn, feel like they need to compensate for it, and that leads you into a path of just being baited into basically falling into the trap of, let's say, Jamie in this case, where it's like, okay, well, now I can actually open up with this play, and you have to try to focus down just to cover in case I ignore the board state once again, right? And I'm sort of like, okay, well, I've got other options. I won't go on the defensive.
And we need to talk about that Primarina, because getting the Calm Mind there made it takes so little damage from the freeze dry, even though it was super effective from the Iron Bundle really wasn't able to do enough to it. And you think if the Iron Bundle was able to go for a freeze dry into the Primarina slot before the Carmine, maybe that endgame, even with a burn, turns out very differently.
It really could have, because it's just being able to pick up the damage that you can when necessary, when, you know, the opportunity does obviously stand out. That Gouging Fire was at some point in a situation, I think we're just touching a bit on it, where it was susceptible to the Iron Bundle's freeze dry, and it surely would have gone down, right? It was like 20 hit points or something like that. So it's once again the scenario where you just need to make sure that you try to catch your opponent out with those reads, and that's just an indication that it's not as clear-cut, this matchup.
It's certainly not. There's a lot to be playing for both players. And speaking of play, we have Game 2 ready to go. We'll have to see how these trainers have adapted, and there's going to be an adaptation right off the bat.
Right off the bat with that Incineroar and Registeel, and guess what? There's an adaptation on the other side of the field with the Corviknight right now showing off. It's a reflective mirror armor ability, throwing back the Intimidate straight onto the Kin of VGC, Kitten over on the other side, whilst the Gouging Fire is in a primary spot to be able to offer assistance to this Corviknight, maybe wanting to bulk up a bit.
Yeah, bulk up would be very strong in this situation for Jamie, and especially protected as well a little bit by the Intimidate reflecting from the Corviknight's mirror armor ability, as you rightly mentioned there. But of course, we've seen the Howl in Game 1 from Jamie. He really likes going for it. He's going to be going for it yet again, boosting up that Corviknight with that Howl. It's going to be turning into such an offensive threat, and this is the other way that you can play against Pokemon like Registeel. Just outpace their damage by outpace their iron defense.
Outpace the iron defense indeed, as we do see that interaction occurring right now. Registeel trying to catch up. Parting shot is actually the move of choice from Incineroar, not opting to go for the fake out there, maybe not wanting to be susceptible to any sort of Rocky Helmet, or anticipating a bit of a defensive play from that Corviknight. But the real question is, what comes in here then?
Well, that is a good question, and I think, to be honest, it's probably more likely that the Urshifu or the Ogerpon is going to be coming in, and it is indeed the Ogerpon here. The problem that Roman has now is, how do you break the Corviknight? Because Jamie's going to be able to get lots of bulk ups up in this situation, but also he has the ability to do damage to that Registeel via a non-attacking means, which is that Rocky Helmet. And so with the Corviknight being able to recover its HP, I believe, with a option to go for a Roost, then the end game looks very different to what you'd expect from a Registeel end game.
As we're actually going to see the Gouging Fire switch out right here, will be forfeiting its booster energy that will not be able to be reprocced once again next time it's back on the field. And a bit of a switch out as well from Roman there, Ogerpon into the Incineroar. Maybe Jamie expecting or anticipating a switch out there and trying to clarify and double up with that Brave Bird, which we know the Ogerpon was highly threatened from 2-hit KO. That's not something you commonly see onto an Incineroar.
Well, at 2 stages of increased attack, anything is possible in this game so far. Iron Defense rounding out the turn there for the Registeel. And I really like the way that Jamie is controlling the board state in this scenario, where Mirror Armor is just stopping any Intimidates, Primarina not susceptible to Intimidate, Corviknight getting more and more boosts on its side of the field. I like the way that Roman's kind of trying to make the Corviknight take a little bit of recoil. That makes it a little bit easier to be able to be knocked out, but that Corviknight is not really under any threat whatsoever.
It isn't, but we do know that it's got some catching up to do with this Registeel, which is now at +4 because of 2 consecutive iron defenses, dealing a really good, respectable amount of damage there. And all of a sudden, Roman's put some really good pressure back onto Jamie. We're in a scenario where Jamie did well place that Primarina in order to counter this sort of physical defensive increases from the Registeel, but we know it's susceptible to those hyper voices.
It is, and now I'm wondering if there's an opportunity for the Incineroar to get maybe a parting shot on the Primarina, or whether the Corviknight is just going to be able to go first, get that Brave Bird onto the Incineroar, get a knockout, remove that Intimidate from the field, and now the Corviknight has even less to worry about.
It does indeed, but I'm sure it will definitely not have any more to worry about as it gets KO'd as a result from that focus down from the Registeel. Quite nicely there identifying it could end up being a threat. And we've got a setup being organized from Jamie's side as well, with the Primarina's Calm Mind wanting to try to catch up in order to dispatch of this Registeel, which so far it is starting to look like it's beginning to run away with things, or at least it's on the verge of doing so.
This is a really tough situation to evaluate, right? Because the Incineroar's gone from Roman's side of the field. That's good for gouging fire on Jamie's side.
Right.
But the Primarina is a Terra Steel. And so when Ogerpon inevitably comes back into the fray, it's going to be able to launch out a Horn Leech into the Primarina. That's going to be super effective, but Jamie can't Terra out of that, out of risk of just being able to be knocked out by that Registeel straight away afterwards with the body press ability. And of course, because of the fact that Registeel's using its defensive stats rather than its attacking stats, even if it could have its stats dropped by going for a breaking swipe, Clear Body's stopping that too. Exactly. So I think Jamie's in a little bit of a tough spot here, and I think going to have to rely on the Chen Pao that we know is in the back and its Sacred Sword to be able to bypass those defense boosts in the end game.
Definitely being the case, as we are going to have the terrestrialization from a Roman side here. In order to get that embody aspect, you've got the +1 in special defense, you've got the additional damage output from the Ivy Cudgels, of course. Primarina was very well aware of its susceptibility to the Horn Leech potentially coming out here, but Breaking Swipe trying to lower down damage output of the Ogerpon. I think Ogerpon is well pressed to try to pick up the KO, but no. We're just going to see a very safe targeting there. No hard reads, no predictions, and the third and final Iron Defense has been set up.
This Registeel is all ready to go. No more Iron Defenses needed in this turn. And I like the way that Romans adapted to Game 1, where the Registeel attacked into the Gouging Fire, but it got hit into the Burning Bulwark. I kind of feel like this is a situation where Roman can just ignore the Gouging Fire now, not really worry about it too much, because it can't break down the Registeel if the Registeel doesn't get burned.
Yep.
And so you just wait for your opportunity to be able to try to knock out this Primarina.
And I think this may result in a situation where Registeel's just too scared to try to focus down into the Gouging Fire as a result of it, but because of the -1 via the Breaking Swipe into its attack, not going to be dealing that much damage, but very close with a double up body press, completely ignoring the fact that that is a fairy type Pokemon on the other side of the field, with +6 in its defense being used for the body press. Resistances don't become a thing anymore.
No, they don't. And these two Pokemon are going to be able to recover a little bit of HP from the leftovers, but the Primarina doesn't look like it's in the best spot right now. The trouble is for Jamie is we know that that Chen Pao is in the back, and if Primarina does switch into the Chen Pao, then it's definitely taking a knockout, and Jamie needs all the damage that he can. Fortunately for Jamie, though, I think that Liquid Voice boosted Hyper Voice did just enough to put this Registeel in Sacred Sword range.
Oh, but we do have the Burning Bulwark coming out and picking up its first potential victim with the Registeel, but no, the Registeel actually did the correct focus onto the Primarina, does completely bypass that, picks up the KO, and all of a sudden we have a very hungry GM Pao wanting to come onto the field, but it's got to kind of get rid of 2 targets at once, which we know at the moment it's definitely not capable of doing so.
Well, especially with the Ogerpon having the ability to follow me away any attacks. The Gouging Fire will go before the Chen Pao, and if this Ogerpon was a little bit lower or hadn't terrestrialized into a pure water type, it would be able to do so. But now Chen Pao, in fact, no, Chen Pao's the faster Pokemon because the Gouging Fire doesn't have its booster energy boost on its photosynthesis anymore. But even so, all that all that Roman needs is for one redirection away. That body press at 6 stages of increased defense will easily be enough to pick up this Terra Electric Chen Pao.
And this leaves us in a bit of a bait situation. Does the Ogerpon go for the spiky shield here or go for the follow me? But yeah, it's just the follow me right now, wanting to play it safe. No need to try to go for the read, as Terra Blast will be coming out, and at that range will most definitely be able to pick up the KO. They're super effective, of course. Chen Pao, Electric Terra type, definitely not something you commonly see across all fronts of the various regulation set rule formats. How further boosting both itself as well as the Chen Pao now, wanting to set up for that endgame scenario you were talking about, Ben, there. The focus of the Sacred Sword.
Yeah, and actually it's going to get an opportunity there. The body press going into the Gouging Fire. That's a one-hit knockout. Oh, but wow, especially boosted by the Sword of Ruin from the Chen Pao. Now that Chen Pao with an increased stage of attack, yeah, it's a difficult one to call there, Costa, but I'm pretty sure it will be able to knock out the Registeel. Unfortunately for Jamie, there is also that Urshifu in the back.
Yeah, and it does have, of course, the Focus Sash, which just means all Roman needs to do is focus down, get that damage, and just pick up the KO. I think Focus Sash just allowing yourself to be able to be put in that spot, as the Registeel is felled finally through that Sacred Sword, but unfortunately not looking like it's quite enough for this. Roman actually doing a really good job in trying to bring this back to a 3-game set.
And I think he will, because that Urshifu is carrying the Focus Sash, where it's been able to get the close combat. It does more damage than Wicked Blow, so you might as well go for it there. A Sucker Punch coming out from that Chen Pao, but the close combat landing into that Chen Pao is enough to pick up the KO, and Roman will be taking this set to a Game 3.
Very exciting, very high pressure. Also, I'm sure, very stressful for both trainers.
Yeah.
I'm already feeling the stress, and I'm not even on the caster desk right now. I think Roman doing an absolute phenomenal job there. Actually opting out from previous strategies that we had seen with the Iron Bundle not being able to follow through with all of its utility as it would have liked.
I think the story of that Iron Bundle from Game 1 was, it was like, hey, yeah, it's in a good position, but Jamie made the right call at the right time.
Yeah.
And instead, Jamie deciding to opt for a different strategy in Game 2, try and maybe shake things up, catch Roman off guard. But I think the key in that Game 2 was that Corviknight, which looked really threatening right at the start of the game, just didn't have enough in the tank where Roman was able to just set up and set up and set up. And it's like, hey, yeah, you can knock out my Incineroar, but I'm going to get my Registeel set up because of that, and then I'm just going to body press everything.
It's the difference between the +2 versus the +1 build-up, right? You need to be able to at least shut down and disrupt the Registeel at some point whilst trying to capitalize off of your own boost on your end. And it did, like you mentioned, look like Jamie had a really good setup going. The Brave Bird immediately threatening that Ogerpon, which forced the switch in, and that was huge damage. But it's just something he really needs to take into consideration going into Game 3.
And it's going to be the same lead coming out from Roman, but again, another switch up from Jamie, catching the Incineroar on the lead with his Ogerpon there, activating the Defiant. Primarina ready and waiting to get set up. But that Ogerpon has access to that all-important superpower boosted by the Defiant, will be easily enough to pick up a KO on an Incineroar, but also I think maybe could be quite relevant. That Iron Defense hasn't yet gone up with the Registeel. Maybe this is the turn to put some damage down onto Roman's Registeel in the early game to make sure it doesn't become an end game.
And I think one of the other things that we don't actually quite see often on Ogerpons is Taunt as an option.
Yeah.
And that is such a key player, making sure that you can stop this Registeel's onslaught of being able to get those multiple Iron Defenses set up. So being able to at least try to slow it down here, there you go, you already see the result.
First time
it's actually switched out, right? It's clearly aware of the situation.
It is, as an Ogerpon does switch in, and we're going to see some Terra options from these trainers, and I must admit, the Incineroar going for the Terra there does not surprise me in the slightest.
No, it doesn't. As it is the water terrestrialization, you want to try and forego your weakness to the fighting type. But the question is, was there any read? No, there wasn't. It was just a superpower. Deals so much damage.
That's a lot of damage.
That is so much. +1, 2-hit KO. Sure, of course, as a result, you're going to be dropping your attack and your defense straight after, perhaps allowing yourself to be susceptible to a revenge KO here with the Flare Blitz, as we did not see a fake out. There is a Flare Blitz, and there is a KO, and all of a sudden, Ogerpon looking like it had so much going on for its side and its trainer. It's just been knocked out game one, sorry, should I say turn one, whilst Registeel has been safeguarded in the back.
Yeah, but I think like the fact is, in that situation, what you have to do is decide: do you go after the Ogerpon or do you stop the Primarina from getting the Calm Mines going? And because the Calm Mine has been able to go off for free for this Primarina, yeah, okay, Roman's dispatched the Ogerpon, but if this Primarina kind of gets a little bit more set up, and certainly with a bit of support from this Chen Pao, then it's potentially going to be able to sweep through the rest of Roman's team if left unchecked. Of course, while that body press hasn't been set up with the Iron Defense on the Registeel, the Primarina's got a lot more scope to be able to go for a Terra Steel in this situation, and that's going to make it a lot better against Ogerpon on Roman's side of the field. So there's a lot of moving parts still going on here, and I think overall I like the way that Jamie has managed to get at least something set up.
And I think that is the key thing, right? You want to make sure that the Registeel is not on the field whilst you are setting up in order to be able to outpace it by the time it does come in the subsequent turns. But Electric Terra type Chen Pao staring down a water type Incineroar, which is great. The follow me redirection is available, but there is no follow me redirection coming out from this Ogerpon. Terra Blast is able to directly pick up the KO onto the Incineroar, likely giving a bit of an indication that this Ogerpon wants to try to focus down that Primarina with the Horn Leeches. It has not been susceptible to Intimidate drops. It does. Oh, wait, no, there's no Horn Leech.
There you go.
There's just a raw Ivy Cudgel straight into it, allowing Primarina to pick up a 2-hit KO range damage there, which is not something I actually expected there, Ben.
Jamie holding his nerve yet again and not going for the Protect where it would be the obvious play. Roman kind of playing into that. But now the Urshifu joins the field, and because Chen Pao's now an electric type, Sucker Punch will be doing a neutral damage, and it's probably likely that the Chen Pao is in KO range and maybe forced to think about going for a Sucker Punch there. And if Roman reads into that, maybe it's a wicked blow coming out from the Urshifu. So lots of mind games coming out in this particular spot. What's clear, though, is that this Primarina does need to be dealt with as quickly as possible for Roman.
And I think you do have the obvious play of the Sucker Punches there. It is an electric Terra type on the Chen Pao. It may go for... Actually, it just focused on the Ogerpon. Oh, wow, he gave it away. The Ogerpon is down for the count right now. Of course, the slower Sucker Punch will not be effective. Jamie opting for the most optimal turn right there, allowing this Moonblast to bring the Urshifu straight down to its single, unfortunately lonely hit point because of the Focus Sash, bringing the Registeel in right now. And like you said, Ben, there's a lot of focus going into this Primarina, doing an incredible job right now.
And all it has to do is click Hyper Voice for the rest of the match. Jamie just making sure that Primarina's taking a little bit less damage by removing the Sword of Ruin from play, instead opting to bring in that Basculegion, holding the Choice Scarf in its stead. Double Protect coming out from Roman, just kind of making sure that he's not falling foul of any Sucker Punch here, as the Hyper Voice is going to shout its way into both of those Protects, and they're both going to shrug that off.
They most definitely will be, and we're in a situation where it's quite interesting. Basculegion is on the field right now. We know Basculegions, they may be susceptible to one-hit KOs from Sucker Punches from certain types of Urshifu single strikes. It introduces another layer of mind games.
Well, the thing here in this situation is we know how little damage the Primarina takes from the Registeel when it's not been set up. And so, yeah, Jamie can just lock into an Aqua Jet here. That's going to be going first. burst from the Sucker Punch because it is a priority move. Baskia Legion holding the Choice Scarf, so is going to be faster. Iron Defense coming out from the Registeel, boosting its defenses, but its defenses are not going to help it take less damage from that Hyper Voice, boosted by the Liquid Voice, turned into a Water type, and that's doing a lot of damage, Costa.
It's doing a lot of damage, and the fact that Chien Pao is in the back will likely lock this one up, as there's no switch outs for good reason from Jamie's side. Aquajet focusing down on it. We actually see the Heavy Slam being opted as the choice there, not being able to do much, and there you have it. Jamie being able to bring it back in a very well stellar fashion.
Sometimes, Costa, I really do like shouting at my opponent until until I make it to the winning position, and that's exactly what Jamie has been able to do in this set. Maybe interspersed with a few Moonblast as well. Roman understanding that the writing is on the wall, and Jamie Boyt will be taking the win. He'll be taking his World Invite, and he'll be locking up his day 2.